Most people dismiss cryptid photos and videos the moment they realize they were taken in a forest. Ironically, wilderness is exactly where such creatures are said to live, yet skeptics treat the setting itself as grounds for rejection. Too many trees, not enough light, probably just a shadow. You've heard it all before. Well, what happens when something strange is captured not in the woods, but in a busy, urbanized area, right at the heart of human infrastructure, a place where people pass by constantly? It's exactly the case with the photo I'm analyzing today. It appears to show a creature, one that might be known or might not be, walking alongside cars on a major highway. If you stick around until the end of the video, I will give you my probabilistic assessment of what this might be, based on morphology, context, and plausibility, and I'll share a few thoughts on what makes this case so unusual. Let's take a closer look. I did a bit of digging on this photo, and it's been featured a couple of times in the Dogman subreddit, but with no disclosure regarding who took it and released it. Then I came across an Instagram page that posted it on March 25th, 2023, and apparently the OP is a gentleman named Brent Harrison, who wrote, "The picture was taken during rush hour in South Dallas, next to an area full of abandoned houses, and is heavily wooded. The Trinity River Preserve is about a block away from where this picture was taken. This thing ran across the freeway during the day and almost got hit by some cars. I kid you not, it hopped like 3 times and was across the freeway in seconds. Everyone stopped to see this creature, but it was too fast. I thought it was an escaped gorilla because its arms were longer than a person and its hair was long. I am not saying it was Bigfoot, but it was bigger than a car, and it wasn't a bird or a man in a monkey suit. If it was a homeless man, he should try out for the Dallas Cowboys, because that dude had to be 10 feet tall. We all stopped to take pictures, and the lady behind me said, 'Was that a gorilla?' Pictures don't do it justice, because it was huge." This gives us some good information to use in our investigation. The photo, if indeed it is a photo and not AI or CGI, was taken in May 2023 in South Dallas, next to a heavily wooded area and to the Trinity River Preserve. Google's AI helped me identify the general area, but despite repeated efforts to locate the exact spot on Google Street View, I was not successful. Nevertheless, this is the exact area where freeway exit 425 of the 35 East Interstate is located. The fact that we have an individual, possibly the author and OP of the photo in question, giving us the exact location, and that said location exists and was recognized by Google's AI in the photo, is a strong indicator that this is not an AI-generated image. If we add that it presents 0 of the typical hallmarks of AI-generated images, such as unusual or inconsistent details, lighting and shadows inconsistencies, background anomalies, texture and pattern repetitions, and digital artifacts or contextual errors, that the image first appeared in 2023 when AI had far lower capabilities, that Google's AI ruled out the possibility of this image being AI generated, we have enough grounding to exclude this hypothesis. Some people on Reddit strongly debated the fact that these cars being the opposite direction mean this image is AI generated, but it doesn't in any way offset by itself all the other points, and as we will see in a bit, there is a good realistic explanation for this detail. Let's focus on the possibility that the subject of the photo could be a CGI artifact composited into a real image. I will avail myself of AI again for this possibility. Here's what ChatGPT has to say about it. I asked it to do a deeper forensic analysis, as suggested by it, and here is its answer. Here's what the forensic style analysis shows. Edge map, canid. The outlines of the cars, signs and backgrounds are continuous and consistent. In a composited or CGI element, you'd often see sharp, unnatural edges or mismatched blending, but none of that appears here. Pixel intensity histogram. The tonal distribution looks like a typical photo with natural gradients and lighting, no abrupt breaks or suspicious flat zones that would suggest digital splicing. Laplacian variance, 28.5. This measures image sharpness to noise. The value is in the normal range for a slightly hazy real-world photo. A CGI composite often shows inconsistent sharpness between inserted elements and the background, which isn't the case here. Conclusion. The image shows no forensic indicators of CGI compositing or tempering. It appears to be a genuine photo, with the oddness coming from the real driving behavior, not digital manipulation. Alright, based on ChatGPT's forensic analysis, we can now confidently exclude the CGI composition option from our hypothesis. Could this be a man in a costume? Here's what we have established so far: that the photo is not AI and that it was taken on an interstate that, as you can appreciate from these screenshots of Street View, is a huge and very busy street. The man who allegedly took the photo says many cars stopped when the thing in the photo crossed the interstate, almost getting hit by cars. There is a slight possibility that Mr. Brent Harrison is not telling the truth and that this is a man in a costume who never crossed the road, but simply sat there, perched upon this concrete divider. But that is not consistent with the 4 cars facing the wrong direction. Also, as you can see from the screenshot, this short concrete wall separates the interstate from a state road, which is also very busy. A person in a costume would have had to cross either the interstate or the state road to get there, therefore risking their life and that of many drivers in the process. And for what? Could this be a publicity stunt for the nearby local zoo? That is preposterous, in my opinion. Too much risk involved. The same goes for the idea that a person would cross a busy highway to get his body to stop at that precise moment and take a picture. There is no logical basis for the person in a costume option, and that also needs to be categorically excluded. The only rationally and logically acceptable notion here is that the subject is an animal that crossed the interstate. This is the incontrovertible fact derived from the empirical inquiry conducted up until now. But it presents some features, visible with the naked eye, that don't seem consistent with recognized animals, at least not fully. I hope everyone watching can agree with me that this does not in any way look like a higher primate. In his post, Brent Harrison said he thought this could be an escaped gorilla and that a lady who'd also stopped to look at it asked if it was a gorilla. This is something we should not discard too easily. If the subject in the photo looks nothing like a gorilla, why would the OP and another person instinctively think of it as a gorilla? What I think influenced this thought pattern is that A. both Mr. Harrison and the lady are locals and they know very well that there is a zoo very close to that spot. B. the subject crossed the street walking bipedally. C. whether he crossed the street bipedally or not, they noticed, as per Mr. Harrison's words, it had arms and hands and shoulders instead of legs and paws in the upper front part, and the only association their minds went to is that of a gorilla. This is a very important point that must be stressed further. Even though there are black bears in the nearby Trinity River forest, that could have hypothetically meandered into a heavily urbanized area looking for food, and that there could be bears in the local zoo, their first thought was gorilla. According to Google, there are no bears in the Dallas Zoo, but there are indeed gorillas. There have been a few cases of gorillas escaping from the zoo, but the last one was in 2010, and there are no reported escapes after that date. I think it's time to state our main hypothesis and preliminary probabilistic assessment before actively observing the subject. Based on all the observations made so far, I am going to assign a 40% probability to the escaped gorilla hypothesis, 40% to the black bear hypothesis, and 20% to the unknown canid hypothesis. I've cropped the image and I've drawn some lines to make the limbs and muscles more visible. The OP said in the post that the arms were very long, so much in fact that it could not have been a man in a suit, since a portion of the front legs or arms is not visible because resting on the road beyond the barrier, I estimate them to be at least this long and I've drawn them accordingly. The medium height for a sedan is 5 feet, and I have calculated the barrier's height and the subject's height on all fours based on this assumption. Results are a barrier that's 3.53 feet or 1.07 meters, and a subject that is 3.17 feet or 0.96 meters when on all fours. There is in fact a standard version of concrete barriers that is 42 inches tall or 1.07 meters, and I am confident this is what we are looking at, which grants the following observations more weight. There's one small detail I haven't disclosed yet, and that is the fact that the Dallas Zoo only has western lowland gorillas. This species is generally smaller than the eastern gorilla, and according to Google, a male specimen of the species has a height ranging from 3 to 4 feet on all fours, therefore consistent with our subject. On the other hand, a black bear has a height of 2 to 3 feet when on all fours. Remember, we are considering black bears because there are no brown bears in Texas, and the Dallas Zoo does not have any brown bears, or any black bears for that matter. Our findings significantly skewed the chances that this is a gorilla and not a black bear. As soon as we start looking at the subject's morphology, we're presented with a huge conundrum. The size estimates tell us that the escaped gorilla hypothesis is more plausible. The fact that the confirmed range for black bears is West Texas and along the Mexican border, making a bear crossing a highway in a heavily urbanized area a rather unique event, further corroborates the escaped gorilla hypothesis. The heavily muscled arms of the subject would also suggest gorilla, but the problem here is that the last recorded escape from the Dallas Zoo was in 2010. One could argue that this particular case was kept secret, but the moment we start looking more directly at this animal's features, we face some serious inconsistencies. The hair looks different, both in color, length, and texture. The shoulders look different. The subject has much bigger shoulders. The arm muscles are bigger and more defined, particularly the triceps. The overall shape is bulkier. The head versus shoulder positioning is way off, and the head itself looks nothing like that of a gorilla. I have drawn the details that are difficult to catch without a big screen and enlarging the photo. The subject has small but clearly triangular ears on top of its head, and lo and behold has a digitigrade leg. The morphological differences rule out the possibility of this being a gorilla, and the digitigrade leg kills both the gorilla and the bear hypothesis, because both animals are plantigrades. The only rational and logical conclusion to be drawn by the analysis so far is that this is an unknown canid species. Therefore, I consider the Dogman on the highway photo incontrovertible evidence and the present analysis scientific proof of an undiscovered canid species inhabiting the Trinity River forest and the woods of northeastern Texas. But after having investigated so many photos and videos that, upon deep scrutiny, prove the existence of undiscovered creatures, I cannot simply stop at stating the results of my research. What exactly is this animal, and what was it doing on that highway? This is the second time I determine a piece of evidence to be the real deal and to depict an unknown canid species with morphology that is suited for both quadrupedal and bipedal walking. The first time was my analysis of the Kentucky hellhound video. To be honest with you though, I often wondered if I erred on the side of caution with another investigation, the Dogman in the Thicket video. In that case, I ended up considering the unknown canine as the most plausible option, but not with absolute certainty, but I often wonder if that was the correct conclusion. Nevertheless, I want to state the following. After hearing hundreds of reports and after analyzing photos and videos, with many more to come, I consider the Dogman a real extant creature. These things exist, and the frightening consistency in eyewitness reports indicate that they are extremely dangerous and that their sight provokes long-term psychological damages on most people. They are almost unequivocally described as having eyes and faces that express pure malice, and that they always try to exert dominance by deliberately terrifying human bystanders. I speculate that this is due to their near-human intelligence and that the psychological effects are due, at least in part, to something similar to the uncanny valley cognitive phenomenon. We recognize higher intelligence and complex emotions in facial expressions of something that is not human, but our conscious system of beliefs and ideas is not primed for it. This causes normally an irreconcilable conflict between the primal and the more evolved structures of our brains. At least that's a working theory of mine. What I am a bit more certain of is why this particular Dogman chose to break protocol, so to speak, since they actively concealed their existence from us and show itself to humans by crossing a busy street and causing some drivers to slam on the brakes and stopping on the wrong direction. The photo, as I mentioned at the beginning, was posted on Instagram in a group called Bigfoot Evidence. The group owner wrote that the witness claims this sighting took place during tornado warnings. I believe this Dogman was forced by the weather conditions to retreat as quickly as possible to the forest, and possibly to the rest of the pack. That's why he had to let humans see it. This would not be strange at all, given that there are many accounts about cryptids being more easily spotted during extreme weather conditions. On a side note, there is also an episode of Dogman Encounters Radio where a man from Dallas talks specifically about sightings near the Trinity River forest, which may not be enough to convince everyone, but in my opinion lends even more credibility to this photo. Well, that's it for today, guys. If you want me to look at photo or video evidence you have collected, please contact me at StrangeSpotting@yahoo.com. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.